Quakerism started with a vision of reviving primitive Christianity and the belief that that we're trying to live as Christ lived, to like see the seed of God in everyone and recognize it. And early Quakers understood themselves as creating heaven on earth. As Quakers evolved, they were affected by the larger society, and white supremacy became a lot more part of the faith. There were definitely prophets among us, Benjamin Lay, Lucretia Mott, John Woolman. But as we move forward, like we colonized Pennsylvania, we are responsible for the displacement of many indigenous people. Lenni Lenape here. William Penn brought slaves from Barbados to Pennsylvania, and that I think those were among the first enslaved people that were here. We have really perpetuated the system, and I think that reparations is a way for us to look back at that history and revive that revolutionary spirit in the faith and return to the sense that we together, with our resources, with our spiritual work, with our labor, with others in deep solidarity with the people who were most impacted by these things, can create the New Jerusalem now. We are the religious society of Friends of Truth. We need to tell the truth, the full truth about ourselves, and do the repair that truth calls us to. I'm Lucy Duncan. My pronouns are she or they. I attend Green Street monthly meeting and the Queer Abolitionist Quaker Worship Group. I'm from Philadelphia. I've lived here this month, 25 years.
Rob Pegler, he, him are my pronouns. Grew up in the suburbs of New York and have lived in the Northeast and a little bit in Atlanta, and I've been in Philly for about 13 years. And I don't officially consider myself a Quaker, but I spent a lot of time with Quakers. Reparation work started out functioning as a consultancy. We led a racial justice capacity building cohort for a Quaker meeting. We helped a community organization do community engagement. Some of the work has always been about supporting the reparationist ecosystem in Philadelphia and connecting it to reparationists beyond. Lucy and I share a fellowship with the Truth Telling Project, a national organization that supports learning how to do reparations and understanding reparations better. And so we've shifted from a la carte focusing on other people's problems to setting our own agenda for being a good movement player and fertilizing the ecosystem.
I like to quote Dave Ragland, who's the co-director of the Truth Telling Project, who says that reparations is the midpoint between truth and reconciliation. It definitely is resource redistribution. I think that land back and all of that is really elemental, but it's also deep spiritual repair. It's really healing on the level of relationships, spirit and resources.
It's a practice, it's a spiritual practice, but it's like an ethos, a set of actions, a set of values. So it's many things, and one really helpful way to think about it, and I feel it's an experiment that we and the people we're connecting with are figuring out, is how is reparations a spiritual practice and a lifestyle? I find usefulness and excitement in not knowing what the answer is. One aspect of that is we don't know what the answer is. We haven't done it yet. I hadn't given reparations much thought and didn't know much about reparations, but the way I was able to make it make sense for me is like deal with it as a design problem. Like what's the frame, what's the approach, what's the design brief on making the world what Benjamin Lay, a Quaker, would call the New Jerusalem.
People in the United States are haunted by the past, by chattel slavery, by the genocide of indigenous people. That is animating us. It's animating what we do and how we live. And in order to really turn those ghosts from ghosts who are haunting us and making us behave in ways that we don't necessarily want to, that we have to go back and reckon with that past.
I think there's a very strong invitation to be self-satisfied and smug and live in the past for Quakers. From Benjamin Lay being out in front to the Germantown Declaration, the idea that like Quakers were reparationists, like, yeah, yes, and living in the past, resting on laurels, a culture of politeness and non-conflict lets a lot of stuff fester. And reparations, again, great disinfectant and catalyst for burning that off.
Reparations is a tool for living in integrity and not having, like parts of your history that you're like, oh, we don't talk about that, yeah, that's from the past. But to really like surface that and understand it as integral to who you've become, and to grapple with it and metabolize the pain of reckoning with that, and also the possibility that comes from doing the healing and walking through it. So of course I started to look at my own history and suspected that I had slaveholders in my family. And through reparative genealogy discovered that a great-great-great-great-grandfather, Reverend Clement Reed, who was a Presbyterian minister, in the deed of his estate was a record of the things that he was passing along, including furniture. And in amongst that were the listing of 22 people that he had enslaved. There's a period of, understandable like guilt and shame, but that's not going to get us anywhere. And so like sitting with that, working through it, and to recover from our socialized self, our spiritual selves, because I think that's elementally what reparations is. We have a socialized self that's like breathes in the toxicity of white supremacy and capitalism. And we also have a spiritual self that can be liberated from that societal conditioning and live fully from the spirit.
Inviting spirit and moving in right relationship are necessary, and actually moving resources, money and land is necessary. If you are a Quaker or not a Quaker and have resources, land or money that you want to flow into healing and repair in Philadelphia and connecting Philadelphia with the national movement, Lucy and I and the people we're working with are getting more and more focused, and that focus is accelerating. All this spiritual stuff in relationship is great, but we really need to start moving significant resources in order for that healing and repair and credibility and momentum to all keep going.
Thank you for watching this episode of QuakerSpeak. If you like this video, please leave a thumbs up and a comment so we can reach even more friends. For more videos, click this playlist here. To subscribe to QuakerSpeak, click this here. And to support us on Patreon, click here. Thank you so much for watching. Happy Thursday.